Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the strange swirling colors of the jump gate ahead. 3 years had passed since humanity first made contact with alien civilizations, and the galaxy still felt impossibly vast and mysterious. The exploration ship had been traveling for 6 months, mapping new star systems and looking for resources that Earth desperately needed. "Captain, we're getting some unusual readings from the other side of that gate," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes from her position at the tactical station. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her green eyes showed the sharp focus that had made her one of the youngest tactical officers in the fleet. Jake nodded, studying the data on his command screen. The gate was ancient, probably built by some long-dead civilization. Most of the gates they had found led to empty systems or dead worlds. But this one was different. The readings showed active energy signatures and what looked like a populated star system. "Take us through, nice and slow," Jake ordered. "I want full scans the moment we emerge. If there's anyone home, I'd rather know about it before they know about us." The horizon slipped through the gate, and immediately the bridge filled with alarm sounds. On the main screen, 6 massive alien warships hung in space like sleeping giants. They were unlike anything humanity had seen before, with smooth curved hulls that seemed to absorb light and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "Captain, those ships just powered up their weapons," Lisa reported, her voice steady despite the danger. "I'm reading energy signatures that could turn us into space dust in about 10 seconds. Before Jake could respond, a communication signal crackled through the ship's speakers. The voice was harsh and mechanical, clearly run through some kind of translation device. "Unknown vessel, you have violated the sacred borders of the Zephyrian Empire. I am War Commander Veltar Nexus of the Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Jake took a deep breath. First contact with a hostile alien species was not what he had hoped for today. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We come in peace and had no knowledge of your territorial claims. We're explorers, not invaders. Peace." The alien voice seemed to find the concept amusing. "Your species is unknown to us, which means you are not part of the Galactic Confederation. That makes you either slaves or enemies. Choose quickly." Lisa was quietly working at her station, recording everything about the alien ships, their movement patterns, weapon configurations, how they arranged themselves in formation. She had spent years studying military tactics, and something about these aliens struck her as odd. They moved like they were performing some kind of ceremonial dance rather than preparing for actual combat. "We choose neither," Jake replied firmly. "We're simply passing through. Allow us to leave, and we'll mark this system as off-limits to human ships." War Commander Veltar Nexus laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your arrogance amuses me, human. No species makes demands of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your ship and submit to cultural cleansing, or you will die." That's when the second ship appeared. The merchant vessel New Boston dropped out of hyperspace like a wounded animal, trailing debris and atmosphere. Jake could see massive holes in its hull, and the distress signal was broadcasting on all frequencies. The ship was carrying refugees from a pirate attack on the colony world of New Virginia. "Captain, that's a civilian vessel," Lisa said urgently. "I'm reading over 300 life signs aboard, mostly families with children." Jake felt his jaw tighten. The New Boston was barely holding together, and these alien warships were treating it like it was some kind of invasion force. "War Commander, that ship is damaged and carrying civilians," Jake transmitted. "They're not a threat to anyone. All human vessels are threats," Veltar Nexus replied coldly. "Both ships will surrender or both will be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to comply." Jake looked around his bridge. The Horizon was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had basic defensive systems and a few light weapons, but nothing that could stand against 6 alien battleships. Every logical part of his mind said to surrender and hope for the best, but Jake Morrison had not become a starship captain by always choosing the logical option. "Lisa, what do you make of their formation?" he asked quietly. "They're flying in a perfect hexagon pattern," she replied, understanding immediately where his thoughts were going. "Very pretty, very organized, and very predictable. They're not covering each other's blind spots, they're just trying to look impressive. And their weapons? Focused forward. If we can get behind them or force them to break formation, they'll have trouble bringing their main guns to bear." Jake smiled grimly. "Load our torpedo tubes and prepare for evasive maneuvers. Signal the new Boston to stay close and follow our lead. Captain, we can't fight 6 battleships, his helmsman protested. No, Jake agreed. But we can confuse them long enough to get out of here. The horizon suddenly accelerated toward the alien formation, then dove below their firing plane at the last second. The Zephyrian ships tried to adjust, but their perfect formation became a liability as they struggled not to crash into each other. Jake ordered a barrage of torpedoes at the largest ship, then immediately changed course again. The aliens were powerful but slow to adapt. They kept trying to reform their ceremonial attack pattern instead of just chasing the much smaller human ship. They fight like they're putting on a show, Lisa observed, launching another spread of torpedoes. No flexibility, no improvisation. The battle lasted exactly 12 minutes. The horizon danced around the alien ships like a terrier fighting wolves, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. When 2 Zephyrian ships collided while trying to pursue the agile human vessel, Jake knew it was time to leave. Signal the new Boston. We're jumping out of here, he ordered. Both human ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving War Commander Veltar Nexus staring at the wreckage of 2 of his finest warships. In 800 years of military service, no enemy had ever made his forces look so foolish. Hours later, safe in another star system, Jake received a priority message from Earth. The aliens had declared war on all of humanity. Admiral Patricia Kane, head of the United Earth Space Navy, was mobilizing every ship in the fleet. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what they had started. Humanity was about to face its first interstellar war, and they were completely outnumbered. But as he thought about how easily the aliens had been confused by simple, unpredictable tactics, Jake began to suspect that being outnumbered might not be the disadvantage everyone thought it was. 6 months after the first battle, Colonel Ryan Kelly stood in the command center of Titan Station, watching the largest alien fleet ever assembled bearing down on humanity's primary shipyard. The massive space station orbited Saturn, building the warships that Earth desperately needed to survive this war. On paper, humanity was losing badly. The Zephyrian Empire had better weapons, stronger shields, and ships that could travel faster than anything humans had built. They had already destroyed 3 colonies and were pushing toward Earth's outer defenses. Every battle report showed the same pattern. Human ships fought bravely but were eventually overwhelmed by superior technology and numbers. Sir, the alien fleet will be in weapons range in 4 hours, reported Lieutenant Susan Clark, her voice tight with stress. They're bringing everything they have. 60 battleships, over 200 smaller vessels. Ryan studied the tactical display, his weathered face showing no emotion. At 55, he had spent his entire adult life in the military, rising through the ranks during the peacetime years when humanity's biggest threats came from pirates and smugglers. This war had changed everything. How many ships do we have to defend the station? He asked. 18 frigates and 6 destroyers, Susan replied. The new battleship won't be ready for another month. Ryan nodded slowly. By every rule of warfare he had ever learned, this was a hopeless situation. The smart thing to do would be to evacuate what they could and abandon the station. That's what any reasonable military commander would do. But Ryan Kelly had been studying the enemy for 6 months, and he was beginning to understand something important about them. Susan, start evacuation procedures. I want every person off this station in 3 hours. Yes, sir. What about the shipyard facilities? Ryan smiled grimly. We're taking those with us. 2 hours later, Dr. Angela Ross sat in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Discovery, studying pieces of Zephyrian technology that had been salvaged from earlier battles. As a xenobiologist, she was supposed to be learning about alien life forms. Instead, she had become humanity's expert on how aliens thought about war. The data was disturbing. Every species in the Galactic Confederation fought the same way, following ancient rules and traditions that made warfare predictable and limited. Wars were like elaborate games with clear rules, specific objectives, and honorable endings. Doctor, you need to see this, said her assistant Ben Parker, pointing to a translation of captured Zephyrian military documents. They have something called the Code of Martial Honor. It lists 47 specific rules for how battles should be fought. Angela read through the list, her amazement growing with each item. The aliens had rules about formation flying, proper targeting priorities, acceptable retreat procedures, and even scheduled rest periods during extended battles. It was like they were playing a sport rather than fighting for survival. "Ben, pull up the tactical reports from all our engagements with them," she said urgently. "I think I know why we keep surprising them." Meanwhile, Commodore Jake Morrison led a small fleet of human ships through an asteroid field, hunting a Zephyrian supply convoy. His promotion had come after his survival of the first battle, along with a new mission: develop tactics that could level the playing field against superior alien technology. "There," said Lisa Hayes, now his fleet tactical coordinator. 12 cargo ships with a 6-ship escort. They're flying in perfect formation, following the shipping lane like it's a highway. Jake studied the enemy formation. Even their cargo ships flew in precise patterns, making them easy to track and predict. Human merchant vessels would have scattered at the first sign of trouble, but these aliens maintained their orderly arrangement even when under attack. "Signal the other ships," Jake ordered. "We'll hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. Target the escorts first, but make it look random. I want them confused, not just defeated." The attack lasted 8 minutes. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, struck fast, and disappeared again before the aliens could respond effectively. The Zephyrian escorts tried to form a defensive perimeter, but the chaotic asteroid field made their formal tactics useless. When it was over, the entire supply convoy was destroyed, and the human fleet had suffered only minor damage. Jake looked at the tactical reports and shook his head. These aliens were incredibly advanced, but they fought like they were stuck in the past. Back at Titan Station, the Zephyrian fleet arrived to find the massive facility completely empty. War Commander Veltar Nexus, now promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander after his encounter with the humans, ordered a cautious approach. Something about the abandoned station felt wrong. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the station's core," reported his tactical officer. "It appears the humans have rigged their own facility with explosives." Veltar Nexus felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. In Zephyrian military tradition, destroying your own resources was considered the act of a coward. Honorable warriors defended their positions to the death or surrendered them intact. "They would not dare," he said, but even as he spoke, he knew he was wrong. These humans followed no rules he understood. Colonel Ryan Kelly watched the alien fleet from his evacuation ship, waiting until they were committed to their attack formation. When half their ships were positioned directly over the station, he gave the order. Titan Station exploded in a blast that could be seen from Earth. The carefully stored fuel, the nuclear reactors, the experimental weapons, everything detonated simultaneously. 40% of the Zephyrian attack fleet was destroyed in a single moment. The surviving alien ships retreated in disorder, their perfect formations shattered by an explosion that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Veltar Nexus stared at the expanding cloud of debris that had once been humanity's largest military facility, trying to understand what kind of enemy would destroy their own resources to hurt their attackers. Dr. Angela Ross published her first report 3 days later. The document, titled Predator Psychology and Interstellar Warfare, would change how humanity fought every future battle. "The aliens fight wars like chess games," she wrote. "They have rules, patterns, and predictable strategies that have worked for thousands of years. But humans evolved as hunters. We don't follow their rules because we never learned them. We adapt, improvise, and do whatever it takes to survive." Admiral Patricia Kane read the report and immediately ordered copies sent to every ship in the fleet. For the first time since the war began, she felt something like hope. Humanity might be outnumbered and outgunned, but they were learning something important about their enemies. Superior technology meant nothing if you were too rigid to use it effectively. The war was about to change, and the Zephyrian Empire had no idea what was coming. 1 year into the war, Major Beth Crawford crouched in the cramped bridge of the stealth ship Silent Hunter, watching the alien homeworld of Nexus Prime grow larger on her screen. The mission was insane by any military standard. Take a small fleet of experimental ships deep into enemy territory and appear over their capital city, not to attack, but to send a message. The human Shadow Fleet consisted of 12 ships designed specifically for missions that regular military commanders called impossible. They were fast, nearly invisible to alien sensors, and crewed by volunteers who understood they probably would not be coming home. "Major, we're approaching the outer defense perimeter," whispered Sergeant Tom Bradley, the ship's pilot. Even though no one could hear them in the vacuum of space, everyone spoke quietly during stealth operations. Beth studied the tactical display showing hundreds of Zephyrian warships patrolling their home system. Any one of those vessels could destroy her entire fleet if they were detected. But Dr. Angela Ross had been right about alien psychology. They defended their worlds using predictable patterns that could be analyzed and exploited. "Take us through Sector 7, Beth ordered. Their patrol schedule shows a 15-minute gap every 3 hours. The Shadow Fleet slipped through the alien defenses like ghosts, using gaps in their coverage that existed because the Zephyrians had been following the same security protocols for centuries. No enemy had ever penetrated this far into their territory, so they had never needed to adapt their methods. On the bridge of his flagship in orbit around a conquered human colony, Supreme Fleet Commander Veltar Nexus reviewed the latest battle reports with growing frustration. Human tactics had evolved again, becoming more unpredictable and effective with each engagement. Commander Nick Foster had led another successful ambush 3 days ago, destroying an entire supply convoy by hiding his ships inside a comet's tail for 18 hours. The Zephyrians had passed within a few thousand kilometers of the human fleet without detecting them, then found themselves under attack during their scheduled rest period. "This is not honorable warfare," Veltar Nexus said to his tactical staff. "They strike at our supply lines, attack during rest periods, and refuse to engage in formal battle formation. How are we supposed to fight an enemy that follows no rules?" His aide, a young officer named Kethvor Prime, dared to speak what many were thinking. "Sir, perhaps the problem is not their lack of rules, but our adherence to ours." Veltar Nexus turned sharply to stare at the younger alien. Such words bordered on blasphemy in Zephyrian culture, but recent defeats had made him willing to consider ideas that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Back on Earth, Dr. Angela Ross worked in her expanded laboratory, surrounded by captured alien technology and psychological profiles of every known species in the galaxy. Her research had become crucial to humanity's war effort, and her latest findings were both fascinating and terrifying. "They're all the same," she explained to Admiral Patricia Kane during their weekly briefing. "Every species in the Galactic Confederation has evolved past their predator instincts. They've been civilized for so long that they've forgotten how to really fight." Admiral Kane studied the data on her tablet. "What do you mean?" "War for them is like a sport with rules and referees," Angela continued. "They fight to achieve specific objectives, then negotiate truces and treaties. They've never encountered a species that fights to eliminate threats permanently." "And humans?" Angela smiled grimly. "We're persistence hunters, Admiral. On Earth, our ancestors would chase prey for days or weeks until it collapsed from exhaustion. We don't give up, we don't negotiate when we're winning, and we adapt faster than any other species on record." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the front lines. Captain Sam Rodriguez, commanding the experimental vessel UES Wolverine, was reporting another victory against overwhelming odds. Rodriguez had taken his ship against a Zephyrian battle group protecting a research facility, but instead of attacking directly, he had spent 2 days studying their routines. When he finally struck, it was during the aliens' cultural meditation period, when their reflexes were deliberately slowed according to religious tradition. "We're not just winning battles," Rodriguez reported. "We're learning everything about how they think, how they react, how they make decisions. Every fight teaches us something new." Meanwhile, the Shadow Fleet had reached its target. Major Beth Crawford watched Nexus Prime spinning slowly below them, a beautiful world of crystalline cities and floating gardens. Billions of Zephyrians lived there, completely unaware that their greatest enemies were close enough to destroy everything they held dear. Broadcasting on all frequencies, reported communications specialist Amy Chen. "Full power, all languages." The message was simple and delivered in perfect Zephyrian. "We could have destroyed your cities. We chose not to. End this war." For exactly 60 seconds, 12 human stealth ships appeared on every sensor array around the Zephyrian homeworld. Then they vanished again, leaving the aliens to realize that their most sacred and protected world had been completely defenseless. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Panic spread through the Zephyrian capital, as citizens realized that the humans they had been told were primitive savages had reached their homeworld undetected. Military commanders demanded explanations that their subordinates could not provide. Veltar Nexus received the report while planning his next assault on human territory. The words seemed impossible. Human ships over Nexus Prime, broadcasting threats in their own language, then disappearing without firing a shot. How many ships? He demanded. At least a dozen, possibly more. They appeared simultaneously over 17 different cities. Veltar Nexus felt something cold settle in his stomach. These humans had demonstrated that they could destroy his homeworld whenever they wanted. But they had chosen restraint. This concept of mercy from a position of strength was completely alien to everything he understood about warfare. Across the galaxy, other species were watching the war with growing alarm. The Crystalline Dominion, master strategists who had never lost a battle, ran simulation after simulation of human tactics. Their conclusion was always the same. Humans represented something new and dangerous. They don't just win, reported Chief Strategist Quartzmine 7 to the Dominion Council. They evolve. Each battle makes them stronger, smarter, more effective. We have never encountered anything like this. Dr. Angela Ross published her second major study 6 months later. The evolution of human military doctrine became required reading at every military academy in known space, including those of neutral species who were beginning to worry about humanity's rapid advancement. Humans possess a unique combination of traits, she wrote. Persistence hunting instincts, pack coordination abilities, pattern recognition skills, and most importantly, the capacity to change tactics rapidly based on environmental feedback. They are natural predators who have retained their hunting instincts despite achieving spaceflight technology. The report's final conclusion sent shockwaves through the Galactic Confederation. In biological terms, humanity appears to be an apex predator species. They sit at the top of the food chain not because they are the largest or strongest, but because they are the most adaptable. As Beth Crawford's Shadow Fleet made its way back to human space, every military leader in the galaxy was asking the same question. What happened when an apex predator species developed interstellar technology? The answer was becoming clearer with each human victory. The Zephyrian Empire was learning that they had not declared war on just another civilization. They had challenged the galaxy's newest apex predator, and predators did not negotiate with their prey. The capture of Supreme Fleet Commander Veltar Nexus changed everything. Colonel Diana Walsh sat across from the highest-ranking Zephyrian military officer ever taken prisoner, studying the alien who had started the war that was reshaping the galaxy. Veltar Nexus was impressive even in captivity. Nearly 3 meters tall with scales that shifted color based on his emotions, he carried himself with the dignity of someone born to command. But Diana could see fear in his large, dark eyes. Not fear for his own life, but something deeper and more disturbing. "You fight like demons," he said in heavily accented English, his voice translator struggling with human idioms. "No honor, no rules, no mercy." "We showed mercy when we captured you instead of destroying your flagship," Diana replied calmly. "We showed mercy when we could have killed your entire crew but chose not to. We showed mercy when we reached your homeworld but left it untouched." Veltar Nexus was quiet for a long moment, his scales shifting to deep purple. "That is what terrifies us most. You have the power to destroy us completely, but you choose when and how to use it. This is not how civilized species wage war." Diana leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time your civilization learned a new way to think about war." 3 sectors away, Admiral Patricia Kane was planning the most ambitious operation in human military history. Operation Apex would target the Zephyrian Empire's primary military academy on Arcturus A7, but not to destroy it. General Marcus Stone, her strategic advisor, had proposed something far more sophisticated: capture the facility intact, along with its thousands of future officers and complete military archives. The Academy trains every Zephyrian officer above the rank of squadron leader, Marcus explained to the assembled fleet commanders. If we capture it, we effectively cripple their military future for the next 50 years. Captain Elena Vasquez studied the tactical briefings from her new command, the UES Predator. The ship represented 3 years of combat evolution, incorporating every lesson learned from fighting the Zephyrians. Its adaptive armor learned from each hit, automatically adjusting to resist similar attacks. Its weapon systems analyzed enemy shielding and modified their output accordingly. Most importantly, its AI could predict enemy movements based on psychological profiles of different alien species. The Academy is defended by their second fleet, Elena noted. 48 warships and orbital defense platforms that could level a continent. Which is why we're not going to fight them. Admiral Kane replied with a smile that made several of her officers nervous. We're going to make them fight each other. Dr. Angela Ross had spent the past year analyzing captured Zephyrian military records, and her discoveries were revolutionizing human understanding of galactic warfare. Every war the Zephyrian Empire had fought for 800 years followed the same pattern. Initial success through superior technology, prolonged stalemate as enemies adapted, then negotiated settlement that left both sides weakened but intact. They've never fought an enemy that grows stronger during combat, she explained to the Operation Planning Committee. Their entire military doctrine assumes that extended warfare weakens both sides equally. They have no concept of asymmetric evolution. The assault on Arcturus VII began with a single human ship, the UES Phantom, appearing at the edge of the system and broadcasting a surrender message. The Zephyrian defenders, following standard protocol, dispatched a squadron to accept the surrender and escort the human vessel to the prison processing facility. Captain Mike Stevens, commanding the Phantom, waited until the alien escort was close enough to see his ship clearly, then activated a holographic projector that made it appear his vessel was exploding. In the confusion, the escort squadron accidentally fired on each other, believing they were under attack by cloaked human ships. As the Zephyrian defenders struggled to understand what was happening, the real assault began. Captain Elena Vasquez led her strike force through the system's asteroid field, using the aliens' own communications protocols against them. Her ships broadcast false orders, created phantom sensor contacts, and generally turned the Zephyrian fleet's sophisticated coordination systems into weapons against themselves. The battle for Arcturus VII lasted exactly 4 hours and became a textbook example of how to defeat a superior force through psychological warfare. The Zephyrian defenders never fought a single human ship directly. Instead, they fought ghosts, illusions, and most devastatingly, each other. When the orbital defenses finally fell silent, Elena led her Marines into the military academy expecting fierce resistance. Instead, they found 3,000 Zephyrian cadets standing in perfect formation, waiting to surrender according to military protocol. Not one of them even considered fighting, reported Marine Lieutenant John Hayes. They just lined up and waited for us to take them prisoner. I've never seen anything like it. Elena walked through the captured academy's archives looking at 8 centuries of Zephyrian military history. Every battle plan, every tactical manual, every strategic theory was now in human hands. But more importantly, they had captured the future leaders of the Zephyrian military without harming a single one. Meanwhile, the psychological impact of the Academy's capture was spreading throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Cathara of the peaceful Mentari species sent an urgent message to Earth, requesting an immediate meeting with Admiral Kane. The other species are frightened, the ambassador explained during their video conference. You have demonstrated capabilities that exceed anything we thought possible. Some are considering preemptive action to prevent humanity from becoming a galactic threat. Admiral Kane's response was broadcast to every inhabited world in known space. We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. Any species that threatens humanity will learn why we evolved from persistence hunters who could chase prey across continents. We protect those who cannot protect themselves, and we eliminate threats to peaceful civilizations. Choose which category you want to be in. The message had its intended effect. Within days, 3 of the Zephyrian Empire's client species surrendered directly to human forces rather than continue fighting. They had realized that humans offered better treatment to defeated enemies than the Zephyrians had ever offered to their allies. Back in his prison cell, Veltar Nexus watched recordings of the Academy's capture with something approaching amazement. The humans had achieved total victory without killing anyone. They had captured his empire's most important military facility and thousands of future officers, but treated their prisoners better than most species treated their own soldiers. I request an audience with Admiral Kane, he told Colonel Diana Walsh during their next meeting. I have a proposal that may save what remains of my people. Diana raised an eyebrow. What kind of proposal? Veltar Nexus straightened to his full height, his scales shifting to the deep blue that indicated formal speech among his species. I wish to discuss the terms of our total surrender. The words echoed through the prison facility and within hours reached every corner of human space. The Zephyrian Empire, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, was ready to surrender completely. But Admiral Kane had something different in mind. Instead of accepting surrender, she was planning to offer something unprecedented in galactic history, an alliance between former enemies that would change the balance of power forever. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their ability to win wars, but their capacity to turn enemies into allies through strength tempered with mercy. The surrender ceremony aboard the UES Titan should have been the end of the war. Instead, it became the beginning of something entirely new. Admiral Patricia Kane sat across from former Supreme Fleet Commander Veltar Nexus, now stripped of all military rank and wearing simple civilian clothing. Representatives from 12 different species filled the observation galleries, waiting to witness the formal end of the Zephyrian Empire's military power. But Kane had prepared a surprise that would shock everyone present. "I reject your surrender," she announced calmly, her words causing a stir throughout the assembled delegates. "Instead, I propose a military alliance." Veltar Nexus blinked his large dark eyes, his scales shifting through several colors before settling on confused yellow. "I do not understand. We declared war on your species. We destroyed your colonies. We tried to eliminate humanity from the galaxy, and you failed," Kane replied matter-of-factly. "Now the question is what happens next. We can accept your surrender, occupy your worlds, and reduce your people to a subject species, or we can do something that has never been tried before in galactic history." Colonel Diana Walsh stepped forward with a thick document that she placed on the table between them. "The Predator Doctrine," she announced. "Humanity's proposal for permanent galactic peace." Dr. Angela Ross, now wearing the uniform of a full colonel, addressed the assembled alien representatives. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various classifications, our research has revealed something disturbing about galactic civilization. You have all become prey species." The statement caused an uproar among the delegates. Ambassador Keith Ara of the Mentari spoke for many when she protested. "The Galactic Confederation has maintained peace for over 2 millennia. "You've maintained stagnation," Angela replied firmly. "Your rules of warfare, your honor codes, your predictable tactics have made you vulnerable to any species that doesn't follow those same limitations. The Zephyrians dominated you not because they were stronger, but because they were slightly less restricted by outdated thinking." Commander Tony Mitchell, representing Earth's military academies, activated a holographic display showing battle statistics from the past year. "Humans aren't just effective warriors because we're more aggressive. We're effective because we adapt. Every battle teaches us something new, and we never make the same mistake twice." Veltar Nexus studied the data with growing amazement. "You're saying that our war made you stronger?" "Every war makes us stronger," Kane confirmed. "But more importantly, it also makes us more committed to preventing future wars. That's why we're proposing the Predator Doctrine." The doctrine was revolutionary in its simplicity. Humanity would join the Galactic Confederation as its military guardians, intervening only when peaceful species faced extinction-level threats. In exchange, Earth asked only for the right to explore, trade, and coexist peacefully with other civilizations. "Apex predators in nature don't rule through conquest," Angela explained. "They maintain ecosystem balance by eliminating threats and protecting weaker species. Humans propose to serve the same function on a galactic scale." The Crystalline Dominion's representative, a being of living crystal called Facet Mind Prime, asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What guarantee do we have that humans won't become the very threat they claim to protect us from?" Kane smiled, and it was not entirely reassuring. "The same guarantee you had that the Zephyrians wouldn't become a threat. The difference is that when humans become dangerous, we become dangerous to those who threaten the innocent. Our history shows that we become more protective of others after winning conflicts, not more aggressive." To prove this point, Kane announced that human officers would immediately begin training Zephyrian military personnel in defensive tactics. The former enemies would not be weakened by defeat, but made stronger through alliance. Veltar Nexus found himself standing beside Captain Jake Morrison, the human officer whose actions had started the war. The irony was not lost on either of them. "You could have destroyed us completely," the former commander said quietly. "Why didn't you?" Jake thought for a moment before answering. "Because destroying threats is wasteful. Converting threats into allies is much more efficient." The treaty signing included an unprecedented moment when Veltar Nexus formally requested that Zephyrian space become a protectorate of humanity. His reasoning was simple and terrifying. "We thought humans were prey when we attacked them. We learned they were predators when they fought back. Now we understand they are something far more dangerous. They are guardians, and there is no safer place in the galaxy than under the protection of the apex predator." 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a new exploration vessel, the UES Unity, looking out at a star system that had never been explored by any known species. His crew included former enemies working alongside human officers, proving that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their fighting ability. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes, now his second in command, reported their latest discovery. "Captain, we're detecting signs of intelligent life on the fourth planet. Primitive technology, but definitely sapient." Jake nodded, remembering another first contact that had gone very differently. "Signal the Confederation. We've found another species that needs protection." In the ship's science lab, Dr. Angela Ross completed her final report on the war's aftermath. Her words would become required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. "We thought we were studying how humans fight wars. Instead, we discovered how they end them. True apex predators don't rule through fear. They protect through strength. They don't conquer enemies. They convert them into allies. And they don't seek dominance. They seek the peace that comes from ensuring no one is strong enough to threaten the weak." The war that was supposed to prove Zephyrian superiority had instead revealed humanity's unique position in the galaxy. They were apex predators not because they were the strongest fighters, but because they were the most effective guardians. Throughout known space, peaceful species slept more soundly, knowing that somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships patrolled the void, and potential aggressors thought twice before threatening anyone under human protection, because they had learned a fundamental truth about Earth's children. Humanity was most dangerous not when they were angry, but when they were protective. And now, every peaceful species in the galaxy had gained the ultimate protection: human friendship. The galaxy had been introduced to its new apex predator, and for the first time in millennia, the universe felt truly safe.